Hi everybody, this is Frilioth and welcome to another Minecraft tutorial. Now a few days ago I showed you how to build this one chunk kelp farm for use in the one chunk farming complex. But unfortunately it had a flaw and I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't recognise this before I posted the video. And I want to thank Diana for pointing this out to me, and consequently I've taken the original video down because I don't want you guys building this only for it to break. So I'll just quickly show you what the problem was. Now kelp, when it's originally spawned or planted or whatever, is given a random age number between 0 and 24. So the very first plant has got an age of between 0 and 24. Once it receives a random tick, it has a chance of growing one more level up and increasing its age by 1. And it has a maximum age of 25. So as soon as the top piece reaches the age of 25, it stops growing. And what's happened here, it's happened all the way along in all of the other bays, is if you F3 and have a look at the top piece of kelp now, and you look at the top right hand corner, it says age. Now that's got an age of 10, so that will grow again. That's got an age of 25, so that's stopped growing. That's got an age of 25, it stopped growing. 25 stopped growing. 25 stopped growing. 11, that will grow again. 25 stopped growing. 14 will grow. 25, that's stopped. 25, that stopped. 25, that stopped. So you can see the problem is the kelp at 25 stops growing. It'll never make it up above the observer block, therefore this farm's broken. Fundamental flaw. So I've come up with a fix, and here it is. So it's exactly the same farm above ground, above the water so to speak, but underneath I've put in an extra layer of observers, and they detect a change for the repeaters that are underneath, and they're activated by a daylight sensor, which is here. So once a day the daylight sensor is powered, it goes through a monostable circuit and it highlights all of these repeaters in order. They've got a 4-tick delay, so it activates them in a sequence, and what that does is breaks every plant in the farm. So every plant is broken right back down to the bottom plant. And the bottom plant will never have an age of greater than 24. So therefore, it'll start growing again. So if any of these plants do happen to have an age of 25 and have stopped growing, once a day, it's reset. So the reset mechanism in this is absolutely fundamental to keeping the farm going. So during the day, during the 20 minutes during the day, between dusk and dawn, between dawn and the following dawn, it operates in exactly the same way. The kelp grows in front of the observer block. The observer block puts a signal down through the other observer block into the piston, which breaks the plant, and the cycle continues. So once a day, when the sun comes up, this happens. And I've done it this way because every time a piston goes through a source block of water, it removes the source block of water, turning it into downward flowing water. Now, although kelp grow through downward flowing water, the drops won't rise through downward flowing water. So there's a chance that if they all fired together, A, it would give you quite a big lag spike, and B, all the source blocks on the level of the pistons would turn into downward flowing water and wouldn't fill up again until the kelp grew through it. So there's a chance that some of the drops would get stuck at the bottom and despawn before they got collected. We've got source blocks at either end, and because the pistons fire with a 4-tick delay, it allows the other source blocks around that to flowing water block to turn it into another source block in exactly the same way that an infinite water source works. You know, where you've got 3 blocks next to each other, you take some water out of the center block, and then the center block turns into a water source block again. So that's exactly what's happening down there. if we did it all together, as I said, they wouldn't have time to fill back up as source blocks, and potentially you could lose drops because of it. It would certainly slow your farm down, which is why I have it firing in the sequence it does. Now, despite the fact that we're losing 2 pistons on either end, 2 plants on either end, because of the redstone wiring underneath, the farm is still as efficient and still produces about 5 stacks of kelp per 20 minutes. So for every Minecraft day, you should get between 4.5 and 5 stacks of kelp, which is a pretty decent return. Now, kelp, once it's smelted into dried kelp, is a food source. I don't know how nutritious it is, but I do know that if you turn it into kelp blocks, it makes a fantastic fuel source. 1 kelp block is made up of 9 dried kelp, but 1 kelp block will smelt 20 pieces of kelp. So once you've got this farm up and running, it's a self-sustainable fuel source. So now I've explained a little bit about it, let's have a look at what you need to build it. So to build this, you're going to need several stacks of your blocks of choice. We're using quartz for this build, but you can use any solid block that you want. If you want to be able to see inside the farm, you're going to need some glass. You're going to need a stack of glass. This can be any glass you want. We're using light grey. You're going to need almost 6 stacks of observers. You're going to need 5 stacks and 40 observers. You're going to need 1 stack and 56 normal pistons. You're going to need 3 stacks and 48 glowstone. This is to plant your kelp on. If you don't want any light inside your farm, and you don't need any because mobs aren't going to spawn, but I just think it looks really cool. If you don't need light in there, you can use dirt, you can use sand, but as I say, I'm using glowstone. You're going to need either 4 stacks of ice if you've got a decent ice farm, or an infinite water source and some buckets, because we have to fill the farm initially with water source blocks. You're going to need a daylight sensor, a couple of stacks of repeaters, half a stack of dust, and a sticky piston for the monostable circuit. And you're also going to need your buckets of water to make the flowing water at the top of the farm. So if you're building this as part of the one chunk farming complex, you've already got your area laid out. If you're building this as a standalone farm, which you can do, then you need an area that is 19 by 19. Then you need to find the exact center, pop out the block that's there, replace it with a stone block or a dirt block, just a different kind of block so you can recognize the center. We're doing this because it acts as a datum for us to do some measuring from. But if you're building it inside the one chunk farming complex, if you pop out that block and leave it uncovered, your carrot and potato farms down the bottom will stop working, because the blocks the farmers plant on will have a light level of greater than 7, therefore the farm will break. So keep that covered over for the time being. So once you've got your area that you want to build it on, you need to identify the front and the back. We're going to call this the front. So obviously this is the back, and this is where we want to be sticking our daylight sensor. So first of all, you want to find the exact center. You can tell the center because we've got the block in the middle, and you want to count in 1 block and put down a blob of redstone dust. Like that. And then on top of that, you want to put down your daylight sensor. Like that. And then coming off the dust, we need a repeater. Set it on 2 ticks. Pop out that block and replace it with a sticky piston. And then put a block on top of that. That's the monostable circuit. It's a pulse limiter. And then coming out of that, you need another repeater. Put that on 2 ticks. So you've got that. And then coming out of that, you need a T-shape of dust. We need to put dust there, there, and there. So now we've got that. Now grab your repeaters, and you want to face the back of the farm, face the daylight sensor, and you need to put 2 repeaters there, and then a piece of dust just there. And then the same on the other side, 2 repeaters there, there, and a bit of dust. And set these to 4 ticks. pretty much now every repeater you put down needs to be on 4 ticks. So now you've got that. Now we need to start putting down the line of repeaters that is going to activate the observer blocks once a day. So now just spam yourself down a line of repeaters down to there. Then take out your dust again and put 2 pieces of dust there and there. Then a repeater and then a solid block. And now we need to put a line of 15 repeaters going that way. You can put this on 4 ticks if you want to. I thought I'd best mention it. It doesn't have to be, but we'll stick it on 4 because I said all the repeaters should be on 4, so we'll put that one on 4 anyway. So now you've got your 15 repeaters on 4 ticks. Now what you need to do is stick yourself down 2 blobs of dust at this end and put down another 15 repeaters going back the opposite way. And this is why we didn't just put dust here, because we need to put another block, solid block there. If we had dust on the end here, it would be self-powering and it would never turn off, which is why we need the repeater there and then a block, solid block there and a solid block there. Then we need to do another repeater coming off the side of it. Stick that one on 4. 2 pieces of dust. And then another line of repeaters of 15 repeaters going back up this way. All on 4 ticks. Don't worry, if you only put one on 3 or you forget to do one and you only put it on 1, it won't really break the farm. But just try and make sure you get them all on 4 ticks. So now we've got that. So if you see now, once a day in the morning when the sun is rising, that happens, and that will activate an observer that's above it, which will activate the normal piston, breaking all of the plants in the farm. So you want to do exactly the same now, mirrored over this side. Now it's time to put down the blocks that the kelp is going to be planted on. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can use sand, you can use dirt, you could probably use gravel, in fairness, I think I've planted it before on quartz, but we're going to use glowstone because at night the farm does look pretty darn cool with it all lit up. So you want to stick your block that you want to plant your kelp on next to your repeaters and then all the way back again. And then you want to do the same here. And then you want to do exactly the same on the opposite side. So now we've got something that looks like that. Now we need to take out our observer blocks and put an observer facing upwards on every one of these repeaters. So you're going to need to get above it and then crouch and put an observer like that. So you've got the detection smiley face piece at the bottom, which is going to detect the change in the repeater, and you want the redstone output piece at the top. So you can either crouch and try and place it on top of your repeater, or you can just place it next to the observer that's you've just placed down. Either way, you need to make sure that the redstone piece is at the top. If you do it that way round, then your farm will break. Okay. So now you've got that. Now grab your normal pistons and you want to put normal pistons facing inwards on top of every one of these observers. So just stand in front of your observer and just hold down right click, being careful not to fall completely off the edge if you're a million miles up on top of your farm. And you want to do the same on every one of the observers. So now you should have something that looks like that. Now you want to take out your observer blocks again, and you want to get to one of the ends. It doesn't matter which end, which side, sorry. Then stick yourself down a temporary block on top of one of your pistons, and on top of it, from the outside of the farm, put down your observer. So the redstone pot is at the back, the smiley face is on the inside. That's going to detect the kelp when it grows up above. It grows up in front of the observer block. So you must have it that way round. You can't have it that way round, otherwise it won't work. Okay, so smiley face on the inside. And you need to put a line of those all the way down. Now you can either do it by placing one against the observer that you've just put down, or you can run a line of temporary blocks down the length of your pistons and just put observers on top of those and then pop them out afterwards. Entirely up to you, as long as you have the redstone part at the back and the smiley face part at the front. And then get yourself back inside your farm, underneath the observers you've just placed down, looking up at them, and place another observer. So now every time something grows in front of the top observer, the second observer down detects the change in state of the top observer and puts a redstone pulse through your piston, pointing it out, breaking the farm and allowing it to grow again. So we'll do the same again on this farm. On this line of pistons. Put yourself down some temporary blocks if you want to. And then get your observers and just run a line of observer blocks on top of your temporary blocks, making sure your smiley face is on the inside. Then pop them out and replace them with observers. Perfect. Now it gets a little bit tricky when you're trying to put these observers in. You can't really put them in. You need something to put them against. So I find it easier if you put a temporary block there and run it down the length of the farm. Then you can get this side and put down your observers against the temporary block that you've just put down. Just find it easier to do. And then go back round and get rid of all of those blocks. Get underneath, looking up. And stick down some more observers. Double checking that the smiley face is on the inside. If the smiley face isn't on the inside and you have it the wrong way round by mistake, the kelp will grow up into your flowing water, that it's going to be pushing everything to the centre, and it'll go into the flowing water and turn it into a source block. Now it's a bug that was introduced in snapshot 2. I think it was a second snapshot of the 1.13 update, and it's quite a bad bug, but it's not game breaking, so I don't think they're going to be fixing it prior to the proper official launch of 1.13. So we might have to put up with it a little bit longer. As soon as they fix that bug and kelp no longer turn flowing water into source blocks of water, potentially we'll replace this with a couple of flying machines, and we'll increase the amount of kelp we can farm at any one time. Well, we'll double it. We'll double the amount of kelp, because none of this paraphernalia in the middle will need to be there. We'll just need a couple of flying machines at either end. But I can't use that until they've fixed the bug that stops kelp turning running water into source blocks. Anyway, where were we? Temporary blocks on top of the pistons. Observer block. Smiley face on the inside. Break that and replace with observers. You get the idea of it now, don't you? But I can't stress enough, if those observers are the wrong way round, it will break your farm. So double check. Smiley faces on the inside. Now just do that on the other side. So once that's done, you'll have something that looks like that. Now it's time to grab your solid blocks again and your glass and put a skin on this bad boy. So get yourself down to one of the corners, doesn't matter which one. And now you need to put a skin that comes all the way up and one higher than the observer. So put a couple of solid blocks there. We're going to fill this in with glass. Anywhere where you want to be able to see in, we'll fill in with glass. Now we can put a block there, and we can put a block there and there, but we can't put a solid block there, otherwise it's going to break the daylight sensor. So you are going to have to put a piece of glass there if you want to put a block in, or you can just leave it open. Okay, so now you've got that. And then you want to do exactly the same on here. So now you've got something that looks like that. Now you want to do exactly the same on the opposite end. So now you've got that. And now you just want to put a skin over the back wall here. And then do the same on the opposite side. Like that. So now you're left with something that looks like this. Now we can finish off the centre to allow all of your ill-gotten gains to fall down the middle. So get yourself on top of your farm again, into the centre, and you need to pop out these 2 blocks. So it's just below the level of the top observer. And then you want to put 7 blocks going that way into the centre of your farm. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you should be able to look straight down onto your centre block. Then you want to come over this side, do exactly the same. Pop out those 2. So it's just below the top of your observer, and then 7 blocks there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then anything that comes down here will fall down there. And then just stick in 3 blocks on that side, 3 blocks that side to stop anything from falling out. Now it's very, very, very unlikely that anything falling through the centre of your farm will land on there. Really, it's just very unlikely because of the drop. But if it does, then so be it. But you can't really do a lot about it. Now you can pop out that block, and that's where all of your goodies are going to go. So if it's in your 1 chunk farm, that's going to go straight down to your storage system at the bottom. If this is a standalone farm, that's where you're going to want to put the your collection area, your hoppers, or another water chute taking it off somewhere to your other storage unit. Now grab yourself one of your buckets of water, and you want to stick a bucket of water here and a bucket of water here. And that's the centre done. Now it's time to fill your farm up with water. We're getting near the end, everybody. We're getting very near the end now. So either grab your ice or grab water. If you've got an ice farm, then you just want to be sticking down blocks of ice like this, 15 down one side and then 1 at the end. And the light at the bottom is going to melt the ice and turn all of those into source blocks. And ice is just fantastic because it stacks in 64s. It's just a brilliant way of carrying water around. Buckets won't stack, ice will. So if you've got an ice farm, then use it because they're brilliant. So once it's all melted, you've got a trough full of water source blocks. Now don't put it all the way up to the top just yet. We need to put running water along the top, and in order to get running water flowing to the center, we're going to need a solid block above here. Now if we didn't have the glowstone at the bottom or any light source, we could fill this with ice and then break it once we put the flowing water on. But I don't think there's any chance that you'll get all of the ice on there and on here. Put the flowing water down before the ice will melt. So it's probably easier to only fill it up to there for the time being, and then just fill the top in front of the observers with any solid block. Just a temporary solid block. Just like that for the second. Now you need to fill your next trough with water, exactly the same as you did with the first one. So once you've got it filled with your source blocks of water again, stick in your temporary blocks over the face of your observers. Like that. And then grab your, you can either use, again, ice if you want to, or buckets of water. And you need to put flowing water on top of this observer. So it all flows into the center, like that. Now, hopefully you've got a pair of depth strider boots because you're going to need them. Now what you need to do is pop out these temporary solid blocks. Now unfortunately, under there now, you've got downwards flowing water, which, as I explained earlier, means that any goodies down the bottom won't flow up over the top because items won't flow up through downwards flowing water. So we need to replace that with flowing water. And the easiest way to do that is to just put ice where you've just moved those temporary blocks from. But you need to be careful that you only put it here. And as you can see, it's already starting to melt. And all of those now are source blocks of water. So you need to do exactly the same now, just here. Now it is possible that, and it's very likely actually, that if you plant your kelp at the bottom, sooner or later it's going to grow up over the top of the observer block and turn it into a source block anyway. But in the meantime, if you get plants growing over here and the drops go over the top and fall down and get stuck underneath non-source block water in this trough, then they'll despawn before you get them. So it's just easier to stick yourself down some ice and do it right in the first place. So now what you need to do is exactly the same as we've done over here. Over here. So now we've done that, the second to last thing we have to do is plant the kelp. So get yourself in there with a decent helmet, I suppose, and with a pair of depth striders. And just get yourself planting some kelp in all 4 of the troughs. So now you've done that, your farm is ready to go. It's already producing kelp, which is fantastic. Now, if you're building this as part of your one chunk farm, you just need to put a roof over the top of it. If it's the very top, then you need to put a roof over the entire top of it. If it's built underneath your iron farm, like it is over there, you just need to bear in mind that the roof needs a hole in it for your iron to fall down, or anything else if you want to build this halfway down. And obviously if you build anything above this in the future, if you build another farm above this in the future, just make sure that you pop a hole through the ceiling. But if you want to build this as a standalone unit, you can put a nice pitch roof on that. You can make it look really pretty if you wanted to. But this is going to be part of my one chunk farm, so all I'm going to do is stick a flat roof over the top of it. Like that. Now if we make it dark, as you can see, the glowstone inside it makes it look really cool. I think it makes it look fantastic. In fairness, the farm itself does look pretty darn cool, actually. This is the standard 1.13 texture pack at the moment. I will be changing to the better than default as soon as they upgrade it, but they haven't come out with the 2.4 yet. But I'm liking this. I don't dislike it. The colours are brilliant. But I think that looks fantastic. And if we just wait here for a few seconds until the sun comes up again. That happens. All of the plants get reset. And you get loads of kelp. So there you have it, the one chunk kelp farm module that's resettable daily to stop it from breaking. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, everybody. If you have, please don't forget to leave it a like. And if you've really loved it, don't forget to subscribe for future tutorials. This is Frilioth, and I'm out of here.